Do you know what the most terrifying thing in a driver's cab is? It's not an empty tank in the middle of a nighttime autobahn when the nearest Autohof is still 40 kilometers away. And it's not bald tires sliding on December ice somewhere near Erfurt. The most terrifying thing is a ghost. But not the kind from cheap horror movies with white sheets and clanking chains. My ghost was hiding in the things left behind by the previous owner. It waited 15 years in the darkness of the glove compartment of an old, battered Sprinter that I had just brought from near Przemysl. I found that yellow envelope when the sun was already dipping below the horizon, painting the Polish fields the color of dried blood. It lay in the very corner, stuck to the plastic wall with a piece of old, petrified chewing gum, as if someone desperately wanted it to never fall out, or perhaps so that it would only be found when the time was right. The letter was unsent. For 15 years it had traveled this endless route, Przemysl to Paris, in silence, soaking up the smell of cheap coffee, diesel, and someone else's exhaustion. And today, I opened it. Now, I don't know how I'll make it to my destination, because this scrap of paper in my hands weighs more than the 2 tons of cargo pressing down on the springs behind me. We left Przemysl at 4 in the morning. The city was still asleep, shrouded in the gray, damp fog of the San River. I love this time. The E40 highway at the very beginning is like a blank sheet of paper, where every time you try to write a new story of your life, you haven't had time to get tired yet. The coffee in the thermos still stings your tongue, reminding you that you're alive. And ahead lie thousands of kilometers of asphalt. This highway is like an old artery connecting 2 worlds. The east, where home remains, and the west, where money and new opportunities are promised. But this time, everything was different. I bought this van from an old carrier who was selling off the remains of his fleet. He looked at this Sprinter as if he were giving away an old dog into good hands. "A machine with a soul, son," he said to me as a goodbye, wiping his greasy hands on a rag. "She knows the way herself. Just don't get in her way." I just smiled to myself then. What kind of soul can a piece of iron have when its mileage has long since passed its 3rd lap? A soul is something that hurts in a human. But a machine only has an engine, a gearbox, and a fuel system. But it was only funny until the first big stop. I stopped on the A4 near Krakow to check the cargo tie-downs. I was looking for a phone charger in the glove box, digging through a pile of old receipts, fuses, and other junk, and that's when my fingers brushed against something rough behind the false panel. The envelope was thick, yellowed with time and temperature changes. There was no stamp on it, only a sweeping inscription in pencil that had already begun to fade. "For Maria, Paris, deliver in person." The handwriting was masculine and heavy, as if every letter had cost the author an incredible effort, as if he were carving them in stone rather than writing on paper. Road etiquette says, don't touch what isn't yours. But when you are one-on-one with the night road, when the hum of the tires becomes your only companion, curiosity turns into an obsession. I carefully tore the edge. Inside lay a child's drawing, touching and clumsy, a crooked house with smoke coming from the chimney, a sun with huge rays like fingers, and 3 figures holding hands. Beneath them, it was signed in a child's hand, "Daddy, Mommy, and me," and the letter itself. Dated June 2011, already near Wrocław, as the headlights began to cut through the thick night darkness, I started to read. I turned on the cab light at every stop, poring over these lines written by a man named Andriy. It wasn't just a note, it was a confession. "Maria, my love, forgive me. Forgive me for again not coming for our daughter's birthday. I know, I promised. I even already bought her that doll she dreamed of. She's lying here next to me on the seat, looking at me with her glass eyes. But here, near Dresden, they've delayed the payment at the construction site again. I can't come back empty-handed, you know that? We need to close that damned loan for the apartment in Przemysl, so we have our own corner, so no one can kick us out. 1 more month, Maria, just 1 more month, and I will finally buy this white van from Mr. Stefan. I'll start driving people myself. I'll be the master of my own fate, and we will never, do you hear, never be apart for this long again." I drove past nighttime Dresden, looking at the thousands of lights of the big city, and thought, God, how many of us are on this highway right now? Thousands of white, gray, and blue vans fly through this artery every night, like red blood cells in the blood of a giant, tired organism. We all buy minutes of conversation with our loved ones via messengers at the price of a liter of diesel. We trade our children's first steps, our wives' birthdays, and our parents' funerals for Euro kilometers. Andre wrote about Paris as the promised land. His wife had gone there to work as a nanny for a wealthy French family, so they could quickly save money for their shared happiness. They had split to different ends of Europe, tore their lives in half, hoping to one day sew them back together at a single point, at home. But this letter remained in the glove box. It never reached its recipient. Why? Did he simply forget about it? Did his feelings burn out in the haze of exhaust fumes? Night on the Autobahn is a time of truth. When the world around disappears and only a narrow strip of asphalt remains in the beams of the headlights, you begin to see things that cannot be explained by logic. It started to feel like I wasn't alone in the cab. The hum of the engine began to form into a human whisper. In the rearview mirror, in the semi-darkness of the empty cabin, a silhouette appeared to me. A tired man in a worn checkered shirt. He wasn't a ghost from legends. He was just a shadow of the pain that remained in this machine. I stopped at a large parking lot near Eisenach, where trucks from all over Europe usually stand. The air smelled of heated asphalt and grease. I took the letter again. "Sweetie," Andre wrote on the back of the drawing. "Daddy is coming soon. I've already drawn our future home. See that big tree near the window? That's the apple tree we'll plant together in our yard in Przemysl. I'll swing you on a swing, and we'll eat apples right off the branches. Maria, I can already see this day through the glass of my Sprinter. I'll pick you up at Boulevard de Clichy, we'll load all your suitcases, and I'll say, 'That's it, my love. The work is over. We're going home. Forever.'" From those words, a lump stood so tight in my throat that it was hard to breathe. I remembered my Olena, who every time I closed the door of our apartment in Przemysl, looks at me as if I'm going to war. Every time she says the same phrase, "Maybe this is the last trip? Let's find something local." And I give the standard answer, "One more, Alenka. I need to tie up some loose ends and I'm done." It's a big lie we repeat for years until the road sucks the soul out of us, leaving only an empty shell behind the wheel. But there was something in Andre's letter that was scarier than unsent words. On the last page, the paper was stained with something dark, a reddish smudge. It could have been coffee spilled during sudden braking, or it could have been something else. The letter broke off mid-word. "I'm already leaving from near Metz for Paris. Wait for me by the metro station at 8. And that was it. A period placed by fate itself. When I crossed the French border near Saarbrücken, I couldn't think of anything else. I felt that this letter was my debt. I found the number of that old carrier from Przemysl. It was morning, but he picked up the phone almost immediately, as if he had been waiting for my call all these days. "I found a letter in the glove box," I said, without a greeting. "From Andre to Maria. Why didn't he give it to her? Why do you still have the van instead of him?" The old man on the other end of the line sighed heavily. I heard him light a cigarette. "Because he didn't make it, boy. 15 years ago, right near Metz, his heart just stopped. Overwork, liters of coffee, nerves. He just rolled into a ditch. There wasn't a single scratch on the van, you understand. He just fell asleep forever, holding his hand on the glove box. When they found him, it was like he was trying to reach for something in the last second. Probably that very letter." "And Maria?" I asked, feeling my fingers go numb on the steering wheel. "What about Maria?" She waited. Then she called me, crying. I didn't have her address, only knew she was somewhere in Paris. Andre was a secretive guy. He wanted to make everything a surprise. She must have thought he left her, that he went somewhere further or found someone else. She ended up staying there in France. They say the daughter has already grown up, become French. And the letter, I didn't see it. I thought the police took everything. A cold sweat broke out over me. I realized that for 15 years this Sprinter had been carrying not just paper, but the killed hope of a woman who believes she had been betrayed. I was driving through France, and every city on the signs, Reims, Meaux, Paris, brought me closer to the resolution of a tragedy that was already a decade and a half old. I entered Paris at dawn. The city of love met me with cold rain and endless traffic jams on the périphérique. The Eiffel Tower in the distance looked like a gray skeleton of a past life. I went straight to Saint-Denis. to the neighborhood where, according to the letter, Maria once worked. It was difficult. Old databases, questioning fellow carriers who hold spots in the markets. But the road, as the old man said, led me itself. I found the house. It was shabby with low ceilings and the smell of someone else's food in the hallways. A woman opened the door for me. Gray hair already thickly covered her temples, and deep wrinkles, painted only by long waiting and disappointment, lay on her face. But the eyes were the same as that woman in the child's drawing I had hidden in my jacket pocket. "Who are you looking for?" she asked in French, but with that same characteristic Polish accent that doesn't fade over the years. I didn't know what to say. I just pulled out the yellow envelope. "Andre asked to pass this on. He left for you then, 15 years ago. He didn't disappear. He just didn't make it." She recognized the handwriting instantly. Without even opening the envelope, her fingers trembled so violently that the paper rustled as if it were alive. Maria didn't cry. She just slowly sat down on the floor in the small hallway, pressed this dirty old letter to her chest, and closed her eyes. "All this time," she whispered, "all this cursed time, I thought Paris had become a wall for us, that he chose the road over us, and he just stayed on it forever." I stood nearby and felt that in this cramped Parisian apartment, the circle that began 15 years ago at the exit from Chemisel was finally closing. I gave her the drawing too. She looked at that crooked house and the apple tree that never was, and for the first time in the whole conversation, she smiled through her tears. I didn't take a cent from her, although she tried to give me some money for the trouble. I stepped out onto the noisy street of Saint-Denis, sat in my Sprinter, and for a long time, I couldn't start the engine. Paris around me was bustling. People were rushing about their business, not knowing that right next to them, a whole love story had just been resurrected and died again. Now I'm already on my way back. The E40 highway is again stretching out under my wheels, cutting Europe in half. Ahead is Metz again, where Andre took his last breath. Ahead are the German autobahns with their perfect asphalt and the Polish roads that smell of home. My glove box is empty now. I threw out all the junk that was lying there, but in my soul, a weight has appeared that cannot be measured in tons and cannot be dropped off at any warehouse. We are all chasing something. We trade our lives for numbers and banking apps. We tell our children, "Daddy will be back soon," knowing that soon can stretch for years. We forget that the road is not just a path from point A to point B. It is the time of our lives that we give to the asphalt, hoping to buy a piece of future happiness with it. But the road is treacherous. It gives no guarantees. Don't leave letters in glove boxes. Don't wait for the next trip to say the most important things. Say it now, at the very first gas station, through a phone screen, or just to the sky. Because the Autobahn is long, and life is just a short stretch between two stops, and no one knows which one will be the last. I'm going home. This time, definitely home. No more, just one more trip. Because the apple tree in Przemysl won't plant itself. And my drawing in the glove box shouldn't have to wait 15 years to be read. Take care of yourselves on the roads. And take care of those who wait for you at the end of the path. Because without them, the road is just gray stone leading to nowhere.